If you've been here a while, you probably know this, but before I became a school and clinical psychologist, I was a teacher and a school administrator. I also consult with schools on their teacher training and how they serve and support neurodivergent students. Erica, our editor and producer, is also a former teacher and an instructional coach.
Oh, yeah. And hi, I'm a school psychologist and I worked in schools for like a decade as well. So, yeah, here we are.
So a lot of education in the house here. Education, educators, people supporting kids in schools. So we all know and have thought a lot about teacher training and teaching strategies and how from our different lenses, how do we support teachers in support of kids? And to be clear, home and school are very, very different settings with different needs, different goals, different boundaries. But there are a few common teaching strategies that, as we have been talking together, we think are so helpful for kids in general, and that we can apply that strategy in the home, in school, with teachers, but with parents. And these are things that can just really help us help our kids across settings.
Yeah. And if you are listening and you're a homeschool parent, this still applies to you too, even if your home and school are the same place and aren't super different.
Mhm.
So, today we're going to start a little series of our favorite teacher strategies that work great at home. Today, we're going to kick it off with something called scaffolding and a related strategy called gradual release. These are deliberate strategies teachers use to move kids towards mastering a skill without throwing them in the deep end, letting them fail, or doing it for them.
Mhm. One more note here, this can also apply for anybody that's doing like an unschooling approach too,
Mm.
because there's always going to be opportunities for your kid because they're going to hit, and we want them to hit a point of struggle. And scaffolding is a great way to help a kid through a point of struggle. So, with that, let's get into it. We're going to break down these two strategies and we're going to talk about how you can use them in your home and with your neurodivergent kid. Welcome to Parenting Neurodivergent Humans. I'm Dr. Morgan Beidelman. I'm a psychologist, former teacher, parent to two kids, one of whom is neurodivergent, and I am neurodivergent myself.
And I'm Brianne Colpitz. I'm a school psychologist, parent to two neurodivergent kids, and I'm ADHD, which means I'm autistic and have ADHD. Okay, so we've mentioned scaffolding on the show before in passing and got a great follow up question that was like, wait, I know what scaffolding is for a building, but what are you talking about? So, okay, fair, fair. So, we're going to break it down. Imagine something your kid is working on. At school, maybe it's three-digit multiplication or maybe writing an essay. Maybe it's getting out the door in the morning, feeling called out, or walking the dog independently. Whatever it is, think about it like a building. Your kid is going to start walking the dog independently. Great, cool. That's like floor 5 of this building. We don't start building with floor 5, y'all. Your kid already has some of the skills they need. They know how to walk the dog and they walk around the neighborhood independently. So, some of the basic skills are there. Thinking about their skills being the building, maybe they have stairs that get them to like floor 2. I hope you're following this analogy. So, scaffolding means that we figure out how to support them to get them from where they currently are, like floor 2, to floor 5. So, again, walking the dog independently, that's floor 5. The key to scaffolding is that we're not doing it all for them. We're building a support structure to support them getting to the end goal, and they are climbing up.
Yes, I have to say I lost the plot a little bit in the middle of that metaphor. So let me make sure I'm understanding. So basically, the idea is like figure out where your child is at, right? Maybe they're at floor two, floor three, floor one, and then figure out how to get them from whatever their starting point is to wherever the goal is.
Yeah, I think another way to say this is using swimming, learning how to swim. Like you're not just going to be like, "Hey, I want to learn how to swim," or "My kid needs to learn how to swim," and you don't just be like, "Okay, jump off the diving board, good luck." Although when I learned how to swim, Morgan, that was one of my swimming lessons. And a friend and I had to save my sister. Anyway, that was the
Oh my
90s.
gosh.
That was the 90s. But yeah, it's the idea that we're not just thinking like, oh, do this thing and then here's the thing. It's like all the middle parts are the scaffolding and how are we going to help kids get to where they are to where they're going?
Yes, right? We're not going to just think, gosh, my kids should know how to swim. Plop, throw them in
Yeah.
the water.
Even though in the 80s and 90s that was happening.
For sure, for sure. However, like, I mean, that one's a really obvious example, at least now to us
Right.
in this day and age. But like, I think the walking the dog one, isn't as obvious because
Right.
especially if you do see your kid playing with the dog, got the leash, understands this, has gone on walks with you guys and has held the leash, there would be a really natural like way of thinking, which is like, yeah, now you go do this. Here you go. Um,
Right.
and give that responsibility off to them. And so then you would just be like, okay, I'm going to tell them they need to walk the dog every day. I'm going to put that on their chore chart. Right. And then for a lot of kids, particularly our neurodivergent kids, that's just like not going to be enough. The dog is not going to get walked, or the dog is not going to get walked regularly, or there's not going to be poop bags when you need them. And your neighbor's going to come back and be like, knock, knock, knock. Your dog keeps going in the yard and nobody's doing anything about it. And then you're that neighbor. So there's like a lot that could be going on here.
Yep. Hey, listeners, it's Brianne. Tired of feeling judged for your countercultural parenting choices? Isolated on this parenting journey? This is your sign. The Connected Parent Collective, separate from the pod, is opening its final group of 2025. This is where you get neuro-affirming tools and the confidence to trust your gut, strengthen your connection with your kid, and find your people. And hey, it's your last chance to lock in our intro pricing. Ready to swap self-doubt for solid support? Head to besuccessfullysocial.com and click Parent Support to enroll before it's gone. Let's finish the year stronger together.
But it's not that your kid can't walk the dog. And it's not that they're being defiant because they've gone on walks with you and all of these things. And they're not bad. Often it's that there's actually all this extra stuff in the task, and we didn't scaffold the stuff in a way that would help them become successful. Like, especially if they've walked the dog with you before, like they're filtering out all of that and they're just like, the dog is cute. I like playing with the dog. They don't realize that you have treats and that you have a poop
Yeah.
bag.
Yeah, they're not clocking all the mental load of walking the dog. So that's what we have to make unseen, the unseen part seen,
Right.
and help them understand all those things.
Yes, yes. And if we don't unpack that, we don't, and then we don't like help them practice each of those steps and build towards the success or scaffold the skill, then they're not going to be as successful. And we're going to make up a story about why more than
Right. Probably not going to be good. And you're probably going to be grumpy with your kid.
right. So if we were thinking about this through a lens of scaffolding, we would probably like have a conversation with them for a time that would make sense to walk the dog. We might ask them to set an alarm on their phone to remember to walk the dog. And honestly, like the best of these are when you guys come up with the design together.
Right.
You're not telling your kid the design, but you're maybe asking some questions like, when would be a good time to walk the dog? How do you want to remember to walk the dog? Some of those things. And then if we get into the materials needed, you need the leash, you need the poop bags, maybe you need treats depending on your dog, maybe you need like something else depending on the weather or your specific animal. So how are we going to help your kid make sure that they have all of the things, right? And so you can see how this goes, right? When we take this task of walking the dog, and that when we break it down, we realize, holy smokes, there's actually a lot more to this.
Right. Yeah. In that vein, I think you can pair that scaffolding with the related idea that we mentioned of gradual release, which just means slowly turning over the responsibilities to them. So you set up this scaffolding, and then the first day of the week, depending on your kid, maybe you do the routine with them. When that's going well, you step back a bit. Maybe you do the getting ready to go on the walk part with them, and you're there when they get back, but you didn't actually go on the walk. So the next time your kid is doing the whole thing, it doesn't feel overwhelming for them or you. It feels like a natural next step. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah. And I think some of our neurodivergent kids, they benefit from being given feedback around what they're doing well. So, like, hey, nice job. The timer went off. You knew it was time to walk the dog and you got Molly over right away and put her leash on, or like whatever, right? Naming all the things that they're doing well, especially when they're first starting to do the task,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Because they're like, I don't know, I'm doing this. It's a big
Yep. Right.
so anyways, like when we're doing this as parents or as educators or really like as therapists in whatever field, when we're thinking about this, it's valuable to be like, okay, there's this thing that I want this my child, this child, a child to do. Then ask yourself like, how can I help them do that? Like how can I build their capacity to do it? Or what needs to be done to do this task, right? And as we do that, we're building the structure for them to be able to do it. We're not doing the thing, but we're building the structure so that there's a pathway forward so that the child can complete the task. And then we're slowly guiding them along that path until they don't need our guidance anymore. And in doing this, we are making the thing so much less overwhelming. And when a neurodivergent brain sees multiple steps, multiple tasks that aren't clear, or they haven't been really broken down, it's like, bam, overwhelm, which can result in refusal, avoidance, anxiety, which often leads to refusal and avoidance,
Right.
right? And so when you think in a scaffolding mindset of what's the task, what are all the things that go into completing the task and building the pathway forward for the kid, you are breaking down barriers for the child and increasing their ability to complete it, increasing the likelihood of the independence. And you're creating a solution where the brain can say, yeah, okay, I can do that.
Yeah. I just want to reflect back to you that I really like the strategy of involving the kiddo in figuring out the thinking of the scaffolding. Morgan and I have talked about this before, but like, whose brain's doing the thinking here? Because essentially we want the kid to be able to learn how to do this themselves, how to set up scaffolding eventually for themselves. We're not there yet, right? That's what this episode is all about, teaching, people who don't yet understand this concept how to do it and how to make it work for you. And I think bringing your kid in as a collaborator is definitely a really great idea so that they can understand where this scaffolding came from, like the parts and stuff. So I think a great thing about the scaffolding idea is, it's just like construction. So once the internal stairs and the elevator are working well, you take the scaffolding away. And that's the goal. So this is the same thing. So you're supporting your kid because they don't have the working internal stairs yet to do this thing independently. Again, yet. But as we support them and show them the hacks and strategies that work, that they are internalizing it, especially if you use this strategy that Morgan talked about, like bringing them in as a collaborator and thought partner, that's going to help. So as they develop more skills, we can remove that scaffolding. Do you ever wonder how your kid will find a job when they can't even find their shoes? The first step to teaching your kids to work the way that they're wired is helping them understand their intensity profile. I got a big dopamine hit learning about my intensities to be able to teach my own kids. Head over to our friends Intensity Hub and take the intensity quiz today at intensityhub.com.
I'm totally just thinking about this kid. I have to tell this story really fast. So, I was a school psych at a school, and it was all neurodivergent people. And this was my last kind of job before I left to be full time in private practice and consulting work. And we did this whole series on neurodivergence and growth mindset. And this was a K-12 school, and we'd go into every classroom and we'd teach it and we'd practice it and we'd play games, we'd do all this stuff. And one day I'm like sitting at my office and I have this kid come and knock on my door. He's like, Dr. Beidelman, are you busy? And I was like, not too busy to chat with you for a second. Like, what's up? He's like, I got a joke for you. Like, okay, I'm here for it. What's your joke? He goes, do you know what a growth mindset kid's favorite animal is? I was like, no, what? A Yeti.
love it.
And then he had drawn a Yeti, and that was on my door. We put that on my door for the whole year, and we wrote the joke so that you could understand the whole thing.
Yeah, because for those of you maybe not in on the joke, growth mindset means not yet. I can't do it now, but it's just like I can't, it's going to happen, I'm just not doing it and I'm going to do it. So,
I'm gonna
uh,
get there. I
I'm going
just
to
haven't
get
gotten
there.
there
Yeah,
yet.
that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah. So, so on that note, right? Like when we aren't there yet, when our kid isn't there yet with whatever skill that we're trying to build with them, the slowing down the building process is so valuable. Build awareness, build competence, and build confidence. And when we do that, we're not throwing our kids metaphorically into the deep end,
Or
metaphorically,
literally, or
or
literally.
literally. I do think that's important here to say that because I've said this when I was talking earlier about a path, right? And that feels very linear. And so I
Mhm.
just want to make a note that our neurodivergent selves and kids means that we often have star profiles, which means we have pronounced strengths and areas of weakness compared to neurotypical peers that have kind of like little ebbs and flows. Like we have peaks and valleys. And so what that can mean is that a neurodivergent kid might need more time to practice the whole skill. They might need more time to practice parts of the skill. There might be parts of the skill that really lean into their strengths, and that's really valuable too. And so knowing that you might need to create and accommodate and make additional time to learn something, and it could be because of their neurodivergence and they just need more time. And I think sometimes as a parent or a therapist or a teacher, that can sometimes be a conflict because they have these star profiles, we see their peak and we see them do all these other things or some of these other things that to us feel very related exceptionally well, and we're like
Yeah.
uh,
What's going on? You just being a turd or what?
yeah, exactly. And every once in a while maybe they are, but more than likely like I'm always going to assume that they're not being a turd,
Yeah.
and I'm going to roll through all of my supports first, and then sometimes I'm going to get to the fact that they're being a turd, and then I'm going to give them a consequence.
Right.
But I'm going to assume that there's something else getting in the way first.
Yeah. And it's probably brain wiring. And
Mhm.
so I don't think, yeah, as we said, sometimes kids, they're having a moment, but also many times they're just not being difficult or pretending it's just brain wiring and they actually do need the accommodations. So the beauty of this approach is that we can really zoom in and see exactly where and what is needed so that we can add extra targeted support without depriving kids of the ability to do all the other parts of the task that they are already doing independently. As Morgan, just, assume there's a star profile effect and help a kiddo out.
On that note, thank you for listening. We are going to be back next week to talk about spoon theory. Not sure what that is. I actually wasn't either. So please tune in and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it.
Spoon theory is my jam, so I can't wait to talk about that.
No.
If we're a good fit for you, follow us on Instagram. Dr. Morgan is at Dr. Morgan Beidelman, and Brienne is at It's Brienne Colpitts. And you guys, you can find the podcast on YouTube and Patreon at Parenting Neurodivergent Humans. So check us out over there.
As always, if you have a question or topic you want us to cover, please send us a note. You can message us on Instagram or use the Google form in the show notes.
And thank you to our editor and producer, Erica Carpenter.
And thank you for joining us. See you next week.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Well, on that note, thank you for listening. We're going to be what? Let's try again. On that note, thanks for listening. What? Oh my God. This is going to be the clip at the end, isn't it?
Just a quick disclosure, this podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute a psychologist-client relationship and should not be used in place of an expert evaluation or therapy.
Ready to run through?
Yep.
Yes, a couple things actually. So no.